Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's Tuesday, July 8th, and this is the Daily Scrum. Kevin Rouch with you from Studio B here at the Elmwood Media Complex. Today we've got a really good guest, Aaron England, been a friend for a long time. We're going to talk about some more racing. He was at Mid-Ohio this weekend. And this is a week of guests. We got somebody every day. Yesterday we talked to Ed Francis. Some of that was cut off yesterday. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties with the storm yesterday. And I was not equal to it. So I apologize. We had some weird stuff at the beginning where we tried to start, stop. I didn't edit that because I want you to see the real part of what we do. And I cut it off a little bit early on the recording. Don't know why. So I apologize for all of that, but no storm today. We're all good here at the complex. And we're going to be talking to our friend Aaron England here in just a minute. In fact, let's try to get him right now. Are you there? Well, we're all good. Aaron England? Aaron, can you hear me?
Speaking loud and clear. Good
okay, you got me okay?
All
right.
Yes.
You kind of sound like my spotter up there. So, How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm joyous, Festivus. If I was any better, it'd be the 8th day of Hanukkah.
Fair enough. I know you wear that Star of David proudly, so I will take all of that. So
it's good to hear from you. I'm glad to be talking to you today.
It's good to have you. And now you saw that. I'm going to ask you, see if you understand why I did this. Our slide today is not of the winner of Mid-Ohio. It is, and first of all, let me see if you can identify it right off the top of your head.
Well, it's Scotty McLaughlin, and he's running that Odyssey Batteries car, which he won at Mid-Ohio with recently, but not this year. Yes, sir.
And do you know why I have that shot up there?
I'm not certain.
I'll because Penske lets us use their pictures for free.
Well, that's a good reason.
And they, as long as we say it's, thank you to them, which we do on the slide. And they had an awful day. They just had an awful day up there. What happened to Penske at Mid-Ohio?
Well, it's a fair question, but honestly, man, it stems so much farther. They have had an awful year.
Yeah.
I think that to be honest, they're originally Roger Penske, the captain. He was born in Ohio. He's got a lot of heritage with his other drivers. Cindric and Blaney are from Ohio on the NASCAR side. But I'm telling you, they couldn't find a hole in the ground after a meteor. They're just lost right now, and it's unusual. Of course, he's the admin of the sport as well. So I don't know what happened. I just know it's happening.
All right. Well, let's talk about you first here before we get back. I just wanted to let you know why I have that up. It was the best looking of the photos that were available on their site. And I love the stuff they do because it's such a professional organization, the way they handle everything. But let's talk about you. Speaking of professional, you're back in Ohio after some time spent on the drag racing circuit, working with, speaking of the dean of a sport, with John Force and his team out there. You were doing work with them. You're back and you're doing a new podcast called Late Lap, which, by the way, I enjoy. If you want to watch an intense podcast, this is it. Am I right?
I sure do appreciate it. You've known me since I was about 17 years old, and I'm definitely a dreamer.
Yeah.
And John Force, I looked up to as a young boy, and he let me live those dreams for a while, and I'm still living them. So I appreciate that shout out.
Okay. Go ahead.
The new show, I've had the great privilege of doing some professional and some amateur or independent work, and I'm back to doing some stuff for myself. And my greatest media influence ever was David Letterman. I just love him. I still do, and he loves auto racing.
Of
So
course, yeah.
I love I love that, and I feel that I've done most of my work has been reporting and fact telling, and I wanted to, darn it, tell my opinions for really the first time ever. And uh, I'll tell you in summary, I'm fortunate to have Kenny Wallace on tomorrow night,
Well,
and
that's what I
he
wanted to
asked me
ask you about. That's huge. That's a huge get.
what. Well, he's been very good to me, but he joked that he owed me a favor because I got John on his show one time. But
Oh, yeah, okay.
well, but I warned Kenny. I said, you know me as a gentleman, but I said we cuss on this show, and he said I like it even more.
Well, it's just funny because you're just a gregarious guy. You have always been tremendously upbeat, but man, this thing is really focused. Like it is unvarnished. Is that fair to say?
It is, and people that know me, they know that I have two sides, but neither are fake. But yeah, I want to be happy and positive. The world's full of turmoil. We all know that. So a
Yeah.
lot of the time, I want to shine brightness on everybody, and I end the show on my traditional saying, which maybe I'll offer at the end of this little chat. But
Okay. Fair enough.
in the middle of it, I get worked up, and I say some words that I don't want my mom to see in the show sometimes.
Right.
And I'm sure there will be a team that does not want me interviewing their drivers down the road because of it. But I'm willing to take that chance. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Well, you have covered the spectrum of racing. In fact, we had our mutual friend Logan Morris on last week, and I met him actually on another podcast that you formed, which is still going on, Racing Refresh. And you've had your hand in racing so much because that's a NASCAR mostly focused show. You now kind of cover the landscape after having been in the NHRA circuit now, and covering Indy this past weekend. How is it that you got started covering racing? And because I also know you're a baseball fan, you're a huge Guardians fan and love the Clippers here in town. But how did you get so focused on racing, just being a good old Groveport kid?
Well, baseball will always be my favorite sport. I love the Guards. I love the Clippers. I'll even go see a Red Legs game every now and then without any shame. But I want to have a beer and a hot dog and give a big hug to my best friends when we go to the game and just hang out. I don't want to work in it. And I'm not sure I'm qualified to. There's some great members of the media in that sport. I identified, in addition to fandom, racing, especially in the North American region, which, hey, I'm there. They need young, energetic, and most important, knowledgeable fans. And I just happened to be a student of it. And I started a blog. I've blogged way back in high school. Twitter took off. I've been privileged with a massive audience on Twitter, and that helped. And then I started Racing Refresh, which was really meant to be kind of a polished blog. I added 12 writers, and my great friend Adam Carabine became our editor. So he worked under me in exchange for a promise of if it ever took off, I would give him the website.
Yep.
And in hindsight, that happened, and he's running it just well, and I'm proud of him. But we got our first ever media credential through Toyota. Toyota Racing Development awarded our team credentials for the NASCAR Las Vegas event. They had seen some of our work, and they will hate that I share this, but they agreed that they would get us full credentials to NASCAR Las Vegas in exchange for an unofficial pro Toyota article. And that got published, and they were pleased. And then they invited us back to drag racing. And I love all forms of auto sport, and I identified drag racing is really hurting for media. So I just took a stab, invested all of my money and effort into drag racing, let the rest of the team go to NASCAR. And I don't want to say the rest is history, but it's too long of a story to continue. And
Yeah.
drag racing
No.
has
Well.
really been home.
Yeah. And we've always going back in my past. Of course, my dad covered a lot of racing back in the various kinds, late 60s, especially is when he started. when USAC was running stock cars, and a fellow by the name of Butch Hartman from Zanesville, where my dad was working and where I grew up. So he's been around the track in Butch Hartman's car, several times at Michigan and some other places as well. And so I got to know that as a kid. And of course, USAC kind of went away. It was a rival of NASCAR for a while, and then NASCAR beat it out. And then of course in drag racing, he covered up in Hebron the race there, which has gone through various iterations, or the races there. And especially they used to do Spring Nationals. I don't know if they do anything now, but there used to be a big race up there every spring. And I remember the first time he covered it, he didn't have earplugs and he stood too near. And at that time, I think they were burning alcohol to burn out prior to the race. So he came home a mess. And so that was my introduction to drag racing, is seeing him and then tagging along a couple of times to see the races. And it's addictive.
It is.
And for people that fix up their cars and kind of do that, informally, the various places around the country to do that, they're evangelical about it. I mean, it is a big, big deal, but you're right. It doesn't get a lot of national coverage. In fact, it doesn't get much coverage around here, despite the fact that the Coughlin family has been involved for a long time and been really successful, right? I mean, now I'm sure you had some discussions with them along the way, right? Along the NHRA path the last couple of years.
Well, you mentioned a few things. First, I'd like to touch maybe again here in a moment. The first nitromethane drag race in 18 years will take place at National Trail this weekend.
Oh,
they are returning right now.
That is timely.
And let's touch on that. But so the scene, the best way I've painted a picture, I hope and I believe, when there's a first time fan, I very cinematically explain when a man or a woman walks through the gate at a NASCAR race. They may be a lifelong fan. They may be a newcomer. They may have seen the Netflix special, and they want to be entertained for about 3 hours. And you're going to get that experience.
Sure.
When you go to an IndyCar event, you may have some kind of international influence, or your employer is treating you to a hospitality session. There are a variety of reasons, but least common, the race is what brings you to an IndyCar race for the majority of people. At a drag race, quite literally, over 3/4 of every person in attendance is living vicariously watching race cars on the track and being reminded of their project car that they build in their garage,
right,
whether it's an old muscle era car from the 60s and 70s, or even a modern Tesla and the different things you can do with an electric car. It really is quite traditional in regards to automotive engineering and fandom. And that's really escaped us in all other forms of North American autosport.
Yeah. And what was fun as a kid then, as you got to know it, was the funny car competition. There was just something about that as a kid, to raise the body up off that car and see what was underneath, number one. And you just had the colorful characters, right? Don Prudhomme and some of there were just a lot of people that, Cha-Cha Meldani. I mean, you just go down the list, and they were getting a lot of press at that time, and that's what everybody kind of watched, right? But there's so much more to it. There's so many. If you look on the NHRA site, they'll have initials for all the classes that are running, and it's a bunch. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, it can be as many as 16 to 24 classes, depending on the weekend. And you mentioned a few by name, some of the pioneers and legends. That's another thing that I think we should be prideful of in that sport. I still call it my sport. I'm involved pretty heavily still, in NASCAR. Richard Petty's still very around. In IndyCar, Mario Andretti is still around as often as he can be, and even AJ Foyt. But in ours, you have Forrest and Muldowney and Prudhomme and Garlitz, and they've all been fortunate with great long lives and healthy lives, and they still want to come to the race every single Saturday. So those stories are still being well received by the fans, old and young alike.
Yeah. Hey, and by the way, we know John Force was involved in an accident. How is he doing? Because it
Yep.
was a
Yeah.
horrendous accident. Yeah.
Well, I try to be delicate because I was, I was kind of around. But I will say, John, if you're not familiar, 16-time world champion, and as of June of last year, he had won two of the first eight races and was ranked second in the world standings at age 75,
Crazy.
behind only his teammate Austin Prock, who he owned the car. John was having a career year and had a side impact collision where he experienced three lacerations to his brain and was in the ICU in a coma for several days and is still rehabbing.
Okay.
I've had the privilege of talking to John since then. If you met him for the first time today, you would know nothing is wrong. If you know him well, you would see something's just a little different, but not off. And he's still going to the races as often as he can. He
Good.
is back to traveling and signing autographs. And he just did two podcasts. Type his name in on YouTube. You can see an hour each with the local LA media.
Okay. And again, that's John Force. And if you know the sport, you'll know that name. He happens to be related to somebody here, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So his daughter, he has four daughters. Three of them became professional athletes in auto sports. And Courtney Force, his arguably his most popular racing daughter, married Columbus native Graham Rahal, who is the fourth all time in IndyCar starts. You might have heard of him.
Yeah. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I followed his dad. So that, yeah, I go back a ways. I remember when he was racing, I don't remember the exact circuit he was racing, but was doing it in high school at New Albany, right? I mean, he got
Absolutely.
started, yeah. So that's kind of that's royalty right there.
It is. And coming out of Columbus, we're a city of pride. Anybody that's out of Columbus, we tell everyone we know. So whenever he would come to the drag races, I would remind people that just like old AJ, he's from Columbus, born and raised.
Well, and that's why we keep an eye on the NASCAR circuit still on Austin Cindric since he was born here. His
Yes.
dad, I think, was working for Jim Truman, maybe, and that's why he was in Columbus.
Well, the Cindric family ran Mid-Ohio for a number of years as well.
Okay. Well,
Yes, sir.
so we kind of keep an eye on him. I mentioned the Coughlins, who now are what, third generation racers in that family?
Yeah, there's three generations and about 9 racers.
Yeah, there's a bunch, and of course, that's if folks don't know, that's Jegs, the high performance shop that started right here in Columbus and since branched out a bit, and then somebody bought them, and I don't know if they still have ownership in that part, but they're very active in the racing part. And Jegs Senior was the guy that kind of got that all started. I think he was looking for parts that he couldn't find, or at least in this region, so he just started his own business. Not a bad idea.
It worked out, order by mail, and they were reported it being $1 billion sale. I'll tell you, the current highest ranked driver in the family is Troy Coughlin Jr., which would be the grandson.
Right.
And he will actually race at NHRA. And even though the family owns no part of the business, he still works the front counter at their Delaware location.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
are they running pro stock? Is that what they run?
Primarily, they do dabble in several classes, but they're best known and still most active in that pro stock category.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I just remember that because I remember early. I'm not a car guy. I don't want to pretend like I am because the only car I ever worked on was my buddy's VW Bug, and we could fix that with a hanger, with a wire hanger. Once he let me know the engine was in the back, I felt less amateurish. Because people who own those cars always let you open the front. They always do. They think it's funny, and it's just embarrassing. But we did it in his driveway, so he was the only one that knew. But yeah, so I enjoyed that part of it. But I've always enjoyed the racing part just because I got a chance to go to Indy as a kid to watch. You have if you have a sports announcer dad, you just tag along and you learn a lot of these things. And I just find it fascinating. I was back in the Mark Donohue era when he was running for Penske, if people remember that. And he could have dominated if they could have got that car to the finish more. There were so many races he was far ahead and just couldn't make it last for a whole race. But that's just kind of the way that went. Now let's talk more about your interview tomorrow night. So tell people where they can see all this, because this is a big damn deal.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So my show airs almost every weeknight. I'm on a little bit of a hiatus because I've been traveling, but almost every weeknight, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 West Coast. And it's a YouTube presented show, but you can access it redirecting from latelap.com. And I'm doing the lives and the little clips and the TikTok style reels. I sound like I'm 85, but I know what I'm talking about.
You didn't put
And
the in front of any of that, so you're fine.
I'm very thankful. Now, similar to you, you've always given credit to people who help you. I've been so fortunate to have people work with me or for me over the years, and this is a one-man band, and I thought that would be intimidating, but in its own way, it's been really rewarding, and I know you're doing that right now as well, and it's kind of cool. And no, I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any creative director. It is me telling the story I want, and Kenny Wallace seemed like the perfect guest because he will inevitably say something that I will owe an apology to on Thursday morning.
Well, maybe. I mean, and it's funny because if on his show, I mean, it is unfiltered, it is.
Yes.
But that's what people want. We want to know. I mean, that's why I would tune it in. That's why I listen to you. I want to know the unfiltered part of it. I really want to know what's going on. I would just tell you, I hope, you might want to get an insurance agent just to make sure you don't have any, liability, so no. I mean, it is what I like about it. And it is interesting because and I know I'm not saying this flippantly. It's intense. You get to the point and it's kind of in your face. And I like it. And I think that's important for viewers to know is you are going to get information that you're not going to get other places. And that is, I mean, that's the biggest selling point you can have on one of these things, is to let people know what you think. In fact, that's the first note I got from a listener of this show was, you don't need to be a news reporter. We can find that a lot of places. Tell us, give us something new. And then on our website at CBus Sports, the most read stories are my commentaries, which I did not expect at all. And frankly, am a little worried about. When I write those now, that people are actually reading them. So I think that's what people want. They want to know your opinion. They want to know. I mean, as long as you're telling the truth as you know it, and you're giving them some things they're not going to get other places, they're going to tune in. And I think that's what you're doing for sure.
Well, and when you're fortunate to be on property at the races, you can allow it to just be other people's problems too. My favorite example this year is General Motors has pulled all funding out of the NHRA Pro Stock category. There's no Chevy, no Pontiac, no Oldsmobile. There's nothing new or old. And so I asked a driver in a press conference this year, why does he still put a Chevy logo on his race car if they're not paying him to?
Yeah.
And NHRA, who I love, their PR people have treated me so generously, but they were not happy with that question because GM is still involved in their sport as a whole.
Yeah.
But I let the driver be the bad guy. I asked the question and then I reported on his answer. So,
and what did he say? How did he describe it?
I felt he was very truthful, and he said he's a Chevy guy. He said a lot of the fans still are, and he is. And he said there's a reason he doesn't run a Dodge or a Ford body. It's not about sponsorship every time, but at the same time, he called out his former sponsor, General Motors. So those moments happen in racing, and the pro media, the big media, are oftentimes not permitted to tell those stories because they have sponsorship. I get it. I think you do, right? We all do.
Yeah.
But a story is missing because of it.
Well, we're starting to see that, and in whether it's politics, whether it's sports, is that independent now news or commentary are the ones that are unafraid to do those things. You go across YouTube now, it's not the big guys, it's the small guys that are speaking a lot of truth. And whichever way you approach it from, there are people doing that. And I think that may be a good job, for all of us. Now, last thing because I want to get your opinion on this. NASCAR, let's go. We've talked drag racing in Indy. Let's talk about the NASCAR, which I know, you're like a historian of NASCAR, but we've got a manufacturer coming back.
Yeah. And so you're referring to the Stellantis, the Ram truck steel.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think of that?
Well, I, so much of my life has been big and small marketing, and I felt like they really dropped the ball on the announcement. They announced it during driver introductions at Michigan. And I thought that was just the craziest, most amateur decision anyone could have made.
Yeah. When
But
should
I'm
they have
really
done it, or
thankful
how
that they
should
made
they
it.
have done it?
Well, it was just there was a photo that was leaked. Somehow a fan got a photo of the photo test race truck in a photo setting and it leaked. And hopefully they've lost their job. But I think that it should have been, they released a social media video later in the week, and it should have been that, and it should have been in conjunction with whoever their upcoming Dodge racers will be.
Yeah.
That's what they did in 2000. They did a wonderful job on how they promoted the Dodge brands returning in 2000 after 30 years being out of the sport.
Right.
And they could have kind of done the same thing. Of course, Ram and Dodge are separate, but I think everybody's following there.
Yeah. Yeah. So who, I don't know if I know, have they put a team together? Or
Well,
are they going to supply them to a team?
Well, I currently represent ARCA driver Kyle Wisner Dodge, and if you would like a new truck driver next year, I know a great one who's more than happy to drive a Ram truck all over the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, he'll drive
More,
to the races in a Ram truck.
more seriously, and I'm not sure I've ever shared that publicly,
Yeah.
but Kyle, I've got you. I think that they absolutely know who they're going with. I think that the fact that they're hinting that it'll be new drivers, I think is unusual. I think it's most common going to be drivers stepping down. I think it'll be somebody from the Xfinity or Cup Series who wants to go and kind of usher them back. Uh, I would love it to be the opposite. We saw about 15 years ago this wave of with respect, old racers. We saw men in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s racing in the truck series. And sure, that's not old, okay, but it is behind the wheel of a NASCAR. And it was Bill Lester and Ron Hornaday and Jack Sprague and Mike Skinner. They all did that in Toyota, and Toyota killed it with the veteran racer. If we could see that era come again with the Ram trucks, because Ram are supposed to be experienced, or trucks are supposed to be experienced, tough, gritty. Sorry, ladies, a little masculine is their marketing tone. If they could get some veteran true grit racers who maybe don't have a ride right now, they would just kill it.
Yeah. Well, we'll look for that. You know, my wife watches the Infinity series because of Frankie Muniz. Oh
Yeah.
no, the truck series. I'm sorry, it's because of Frankie Muniz.
The trucks.
Yeah, and what's the thought there of his drive? I've never heard anybody comment one way or the other. I mean, he seems to kind of be middle of the pack or a little less than that. Is that kind of his thing? Where does he fit into it?
Yeah, so long as nobody else is paying me, I drive a Ford, and so does Frankie Muniz.
Yeah.
And I'm getting really good at those jokes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So right now, Ford in that series doesn't tend to have the horsepower.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if it's him. You know, Haley Deegan, I've got you on record saying she's the real deal, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I thought she was. I'm hoping she will be. Yeah.
Well, she won a lot of races with Toyota, and then never another top 5 when she switched to Ford. And
yeah.
I hate to point the finger. I really am admirable of the Ford Motor Company, but right now it's not clicking in that series. And so I'm not sure if Frankie is, subpar because he's not a racer by heart, or if he hasn't had the right equipment. It's hard to tell. And ever since Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski shut their teams down, there's not really a prime real estate in that division. So I'm not sure.
Well, if people don't remember, of course, Frankie Muniz is the star of Malcolm in the Middle and then grew up to be a race car driver. So there you go.
That's right.
But it's a reason to watch the trucks for sure. Now in Infinity, who do we watch? Who are you enamored by in that series?
Honestly, I'm liking Connor Zillage. I'm liking anybody that races for Gibbs has always been, iconic. But I'm discouraged. Roush is out of that series. Penske is out of that series. Tony Stewart has sold his team off. Kevin Harvick. Kyle Busch Motorsports is gone. It seems like all of these teams from my era, which is the 90s and early 2000s, they're removing themselves from the silver status racing class. And so I would say you have to either love or hate Junior Motorsports. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s operation is really the one that you have to pay attention to.
How about him getting on the podium and getting a win? as the
Yeah,
crew
that
chief.
was. I buy it. I'm well aware. You may have seen Kyle Busch said that somebody else was remotely making the calls.
Well,
I
of course he
understand
would.
his
Of course he would
I
say that.
understand his approach, and there's some truth to that. I've worked for a team that has overlooked team suspensions, and there's certainly some input that comes from a distance. It's impossible to not, but they're not on property. They're not making the calls live. Things change so rapidly, literally in milliseconds, that I give him full credit. And I'm not surprised. He's a mechanic. He's a racer. He's a champion, and he's an owner. So he did
Well,
great.
and he got a lot of eyes on Pocono when he sat on that podium. So,
That's right.
well, we're going to let you get back to it, but we cannot tell you how much I appreciate you jumping on today. And just again, you can listen to and watch our friend Aaron England on Late Lap. Look for him on YouTube or, later on, anytime really on his website. And is it latelap.com?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
latelap.com.
And you will find out about racing. You will learn just one watch and you'll be hooked. And of course, I watch them and also our friends at Racing Refresh, which Aaron started as well. So you want a lot of information. It's sitting out there for you about it. And real proud of what you're doing, man. This is great. What you're doing is great.
Well, you certainly know what you mean to me. I'd take your call any day, but I do want to say one shout out.
Yeah, sure.
The great people at Farber Specialty Vehicles in Reynoldsburg, Ohio. They build industrial, medical, police, SWAT, government vehicles, bookmobiles, mobile mammography vehicles, giant and small alike. And they awarded me the time to talk to you today. So,
hey, thank you. Well, sure. That's a good thing. Otherwise, I was sending them an invoice. So, yeah. Hey, Aaron, thanks a bunch. This won't be the last time. You know that.
All right. Cheers. See you soon.
Okay, man. See ya. That is Aaron England from Late Lap. And I'm not kidding. If you want to learn about racing, not much, but you got to be ready. It's intense. He's coming at you with the information. Kind of an old school approach that I like a lot. And again, I met him a long time ago in the entertainment biz. And then I was on one of his, when he was doing Racing Refresh, I was on one of those shows talking about Haley Deegan. She was my favorite. I predicted that she was going to be winning IndyCar races, but that hasn't happened yet. So we'll wait and see, or at least maybe NASCAR. Can't remember what I gave her credit for. But the Deegan family, pretty well known when racing motorcycles especially. But when I did that show, that's also where I met Logan Morris, my good friend, who still is on Racing Refresh, which I believe you can catch on Monday nights on Facebook. So just all kinds of racing knowledge out there for our show. And we appreciate it. We appreciate it very much. Hey, this week we've got more coming at you. Let's get you caught up to where we will be. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we will have Mr. Baseball on, and my former travel mate in minor league baseball, Eric Welch, who has coached or managed at the professional level, at the college level, and at the high school level, most recently at Bishop Reedy, where his son played. He is now retired from that, so we grabbed him for tomorrow. He's supposed to be on with us earlier, but we got kind of waylaid on that, so he'll be with us tomorrow. We're just going to talk about baseball, and we might tell a couple old stories of traveling together because there are many, and we think they're funny. So we'll see how that plays out. On Thursday, we'll have the boy wonder for you, Ian Phillips, who at the age of 18, he may correct me on that number, but it is no more than 18 years old that he bought the Ohio Hockey Digest, where he writes about hockey all over the state. And he did it at a very young age in an extremely compelling personal story that we'll talk about. But I got to know him. Our friend Ed Francis, who was on yesterday, sits to my left on the Blue Jackets press row. Ian sits on my right, and we're going to have them both on this week, just like that. It's kind of payback for having put up with me on press row for a couple of years. But Ian Phillips, I think you'll really enjoy that interview on Thursday. And then on Friday, we'll have Chris Sprague, who is the media person for the Columbus Clippers. They're in a homestand. We're going there tomorrow night to do some coverage of their game against Louisville. It looked as though Hunter Green, the Cincinnati pitching ace, was going to throw tonight into rehab, but I think that has changed. He's still nursing an injured groin, and they want to make sure the timing is right. So I don't believe he's throwing tonight, or at least that was the last report that I saw. I'll be there tomorrow. We'll take some pictures, have a nice story for you, maybe do a gallery. So that's going on. But it is Chris Sprague on Friday, who will talk about the Clippers. He also worked with the International League, kind of the overarching folks. We'll talk about that as well, and just all kinds of Clipper stuff. Dime a dog, whether he eats them or not, we'll find out. But he and I kind of in the same area in the press box there. That's how you get to know a lot of these folks over time, especially rain delays in baseball. That's when you really get to know folks. But those are our guests this week, so we hope that you will join us. Really good talking to our friend Aaron England today, and as racing comes down to, NASCAR comes down to the playoffs and Indy to their championship, and always drag racing. That's going on all the time. We'll talk to him more about that. Maybe learn about some of the new categories, new classes in drag racing, because it is. If you've ever, it's kind of like hockey in that it's kind of hard to watch on TV. It's hard to follow or appreciate the speed in hockey of the puck and the players, and then drag racing, because of the camera angles, it doesn't look all that fast. If you go in person, you will not only feel the rumble in your soul, but you will see the speed, and that's always a lot of fun. So we hope you get a chance to get out there and do that. Okay, that's going to do it for us today. We're really happy that you were alongside, and again, our thanks to Aaron England. Tomorrow, Mr. Baseball, Eric Welch. Said I got to keep reminding him. He's a busy guy, easily distracted. I hope nobody yells squirrel around him. For everybody here, Studio B, we're so happy you were with us as well. So for everyone here at the Daily Scrum, I'm Kevin Rouch. Good afternoon.